in Montreal, downtown, on Saint-Denis and Sherbrooke, on Terrasse Saint-Denis. And I went to primary school in TMR, though. So although I grew up downtown in the Francophone neighborhood, all my friends were from TMR and all over the place. And I really grew up in the Parc La Fontaine and playing in the playground there and the wading pool there with all the like local Francophone plateau kids. That's definitely who I grew up with. Yeah. Definitely. Well, we didn't have cable, and there were like 2 English channels on TV if you don't have cable. So everything I watched on TV was French. I watched Passepartout and Robin Stella, Les 100 Watts. Those are all very Québécois.
Oh, wow. Ben, Passepartout, évidemment. Un traditionnel Passepartout des années 80.
My parents were never big on pushing the Québécois French TV on us, except with maybe the exception of Passepartout. I was raised pretty much on English TV, so all the English cartoons, all the English TV sitcoms and such. So
I guess I kind of grew up in a micro environment with having homeschooled and all that. It was fairly contained, so I didn't get a whole lot of exterior influence in my growing up. Early on, when we started watching television and the new media started coming out, computers and all that, the language to know was English. You could especially back then, get a lot more resources in English than in French. Also, my earliest friends mostly spoke English.
And growing up in the plateau in the 70s was different because a lot of the hippies moved into the plateau, especially that area at the time. So there was a lot of Anglophone, and there was actually a minimal Francophone presence at that time. So I didn't have an easy time growing up in the plateau at that time because I was a smaller kid and I had to deal with just so much racism that I felt that like screw off, It's like, hey, my people were here first. As far as I'm concerned, you're all immigrants.
It's an amazing neighborhood that is a complete melting pot of cultures. I live 3 doors down from a synagogue. There's about 6 Greek restaurants in the neighborhood. Lots of French people on our block that we knew fairly well.
Back when I grew up, there was a couple of people who weren't white, and it was Olivier and it was Michael, and the whole city knew their names because they were the only people who weren't white, you know what I mean? And they were either of African descent or Haitian descent, which I figured out later on in life, but I didn't know when I was a kid. They were just, why are these guys not white like everybody else? You figure this out later on. Then when I went to English school, that's when it got a bit more interesting because I had to go to the North Shore of Quebec to go to English school. So I was 9 years old, taking the bus in the morning to the North Shore. And what's interesting there is I found out that there was other people who were Anglophone in Quebec City. Not a lot, but there were some. And then I met people from Chinese background and Indian background. Like my grade 4 teacher, my first day of grade 4 English school, my grade 4 teacher's name is Sushi Sud, and she's Indian, and I'm like, what's going on here? I've never seen anything like this. So obviously it was a big shock. And even then when I came home to tell my friends, they were like, so how's your Chinese school? And made fun of me because there was something that was different that I was explaining to them about, and they had no idea how to understand,
I guess the French is probably the majority of where I grew up. And there's not really many English kids. The few there are far between. Pretty much all know each other and go to one high school.
I think, and this is going to be a real cliche, I have a lot of positive because of hockey. Hockey, I found, especially in Montreal, brought a lot of kids together because people it's hockey, it's the greatest sport known to man. So there was definitely that was a big part of the culture that kept a lot of these kids together. Even the French kids would come in, and then it was French versus English, like the Leafs versus the Canadians.
When I was a boy, growing up in a small village in Quebec, 2 events were mandatory. The Mass on Sunday and the Saturday night hockey game.
Blake, Marcel et Richard. Voilà la mise au jeu. La caoutchouc passe de Marcel à ton Blake. Blake se rend jusqu'au centre de la glace, s'approche de l'échec par Émile Bouchard qui reprend la rondelle. Les deux se bousculent le long de la clôture. Et l'arbitre siffle hors-jeu. 33 secondes à cette troisième période et toujours Canadien 2, Toronto 2. La rondelle est mise au jeu. Émile Bouchard reçoit la rondelle à la ligne 2. Il lance vers le filet de Brodin, le disque est pris par Stewart. Qui à son tour lance le caoutchouc à la ligne bleue. Et c'est Blake qui reçoit la rondelle. Passe à Marcel. Lance à Richard. Richard lance. Et goal! Maurice Richard. C'est maintenant 3-2 pour le Canadien. Alors qu'il ne reste plus que 14 secondes à jouer en troisième période. Maurice Richard avec des passes de Blake et Marcel. Plusieurs joueurs du tricolore sont sur la glace pour Félix et Richard.
I've got a country place in Valmarin, Quebec, and my family and I, there's about 10 houses in our family that is all owned by us, and we have a family reunion every year, and that's my French side of the family, so we would spend Saint Jean up there all together and go up and celebrate in the village, which is very small, as you know, and yeah, there'd be a huge fire and like a bonfire kind of thing, and everybody would be celebrating together. And as opposed to being sort of feeling ostracized being an Anglophone from the city and everything, it was usually very inclusive, and we always had a really good time, and you could tell that it was a reason to celebrate, and it was actually a really good time, I think, growing up, to be able to go.
So every summer we'd go to my aunt and uncle's house for Saint Jean Baptiste and have like a big barbecue, you know, like a méchoui, and with, you know, Quebec flags everywhere on the property in the yard, and yeah, and my family would get to drinking, and by the end of the evening they'd be playing guitar and singing Jean's Pays or something like that. So.
Les hivers québécois, je pense que j'ai un souvenir des hivers habillés en bonhomme, tu peux pas bouger, tu te fais transporter dans une brouette, glisser sur la neige, ces trottoirs de Montréal. C'est l'automne, les feuilles, les couleurs, c'est vraiment, je pense que c'est partie des choses que je me souviens du Québec.
A lot of skiing, a lot of activities outdoors.
I like it here. I mean, I've always liked to hear the nature, it's not the province, but I'm talking more about the Laurentians, but I wouldn't choose to grow up anywhere else.
C'est demain que j'avais 20 ans. Gens du pays, c'est votre tour de vous laisser parler d'amour. Gens du pays, c'est votre tour de vous laisser parler.